This video will be part of my countdown to the end of the world. We have 18 days left, and as you can see, I've got a lava flow flowing into my studio from a nearby volcano. I'm getting a few slightly panicked emails from people who look at my videos wondering about what's going to happen. And if this event has been 3,600 years in the making, and we're down to the last 18 days, I think there'd be more going on than there is. And if there is Nibiru at the calculated speeds that it would take to do its orbit of 3,600 years, it should be easily visible in the solar system because its closest approach is 20 days away. So it should be in the orbit between Mars and Jupiter, and besides the bullshitters, there's been nothing seen by anyone. The Mayan calendar is not a clock to set the end of the world, and even the Mayans will tell you that if you phone them in Mexico City. As far back as most of the cosmologies on this planet go, they did recognize the 2,500 plus year cycle of the equinoxes. And they did know we were part of a galaxy, which they symbolize as a snake eating its own tail. And that is the end of ancient cosmology. There's very little discussion of what drives the galaxy, which is another level up. What is it that shines on and drives all galaxies? And there is another level above that. These are scarcely mentioned, except in the mystery schools and the inner circle of mankind. This is part of the knowledge of how the game of this universe was constructed. And those who knew this stuff 2,500 years ago, 5,000, 10, 20,000 years ago, seem to have used it to put one over on the public, and were able to access creating an overload of DMT in the pineal gland so they could have out-of-body experiences or experiences of the other dimensions that are there. And I'm not going to use the phrase higher dimensions. There are just more dimensions than we can see from here. And if you're looking at a six-dimensional phenomenon in a three-dimensional viewpoint, you're not going to know what's going on. If you're looking at it from a seventh-dimensional viewpoint, you know exactly what's going on. And someone said about this planet, it takes a brave man to confront what he is and where he is. And according to my sources, this is the worst place in this galaxy. Things are not supposed to be like this. We're not supposed to have race wars and murder and atomic holocausts and manufactured diseases and starving children being eaten by buzzards. But it's been going on here for a long time because this place is run by psychopaths. And it's run from off-planet by a planet governed by psychopaths. And it's not a good idea. What's occurring here because of the availability of media like this one, mass media, free mass media, anybody's able and free to communicate about crimes that they see, psychopathic behavior in those who govern. And I was asked by my group to stop doing political videos and just concentrate on the good things. I have like a box of newspaper clippings, just stuff, and crooked mayors and governors being arrested and so on. They're all, as a class, mentally ill, greedy, and materialistic. And what is needed is that the 98% of us who are less corrupt are beholden to those who put this information out to not stick their heads in the sand and think someone else will take care of it. All that's needed for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing, and that is what has occurred. The situation here is the sum total of every time nothing was done when something should have been done. So because of media like this, there is an opportunity for everyone to catch the psychopaths with their pants down and use the tools of the civilization we do have, like the justice departments, to get them out of corrupted fat cat positions. But someone, meaning you, will have to fill that space with a decent man. And it's not going to be quick, and it's not going to be easy. There's a prayer in the movie The 13th Warrior. And it's one of the best things I've seen in any movie. Is for everything that should have been thought and was not thought, for everything that should have been said and was not said, and for everything that should have been done and was not done. May God forgive me, and all I ask is to live the next few moments well. This could be taken as a prescription for what's wrong. We have, I think, if not 200, there's 200 hours of whistleblower testimony on the Project Camelot archives. And We don't need a secret government. We need an ethical government. Now, I have stumbled across a book called Mind Control. The guy who wrote it was fired and disgraced, of course, because he told the truth. They took away his Nobel Prize. I'm going to be doing a lecture on that. And I put a lecture on here from the early 80s, and it was a lecture given in Europe, and the basic thrust of it is what the governments are working on is mind control. And this book explains where they're at with that, and it is possible. And it is the greatest danger to the public on any planet if the governments use mind control, because it's electronic, it's hypnotic. There is apparently a microwave sense. People can hear microwaves, and you can put messages on those microwaves, either subliminal or you can put voices in heads and many other things. And they are well on their way with that. And the people from off planet who are the top dogs here on that planet, they have this down to the point where what we have as streetlights here also broadcast mind control, mind numbing frequencies. And it's so bad that if someone has a thought against the government, they'll go down to the police station and confess. And that's what's on the agenda for this planet, because that is the fun for these guys. They're not interested in physical items per se. They're interested in knowing that their boot heel is grinding into the face of humanity forever. That's a quote from 1984. The book and the movie, I'd recommend, if you've never seen those movies, the old one and the new one, they're well worth seeing. And it's a little bit past 1984 right now. So as to what is going on right now, luckily for us, the galactic government, and there is one, although it's not glorious and wonderful, it's just as goofy as governments here, was notified of the situation here. And they have come here and looked at the situation and decided to not blockade the planet, but it's been called a non-interference zone. Nobody can come in to make it worse. And it's our chance and task to become aware of the psychotic governments and to throw them off of our backs. And there's also an experiment running here of 7 different races, and the point of that experiment was to see which race would come out on top, because someone was looking for an intelligent, disposable, biological, which is you. That's the crime that was perpetrated here. And that experiment is going to be run out. Those races are the Oriental race, the white race, the Maori, the North American Indians, the Japanese. the Celts and the Africans. These races are all slightly different, and it was someone's idea to color code them so they would know who their peeps were. So the grand experiment now is it would be good for us to attain our own freedom from the psychopaths and straighten things out here, and it would be fairly nice here if things were just straightened out, and after that we could look at building. But mankind did not crawl out of the primordial sea and go through trillions of years of evolution to become a caveman who discovered fire and how to make arrows and things like that. This is part of the false data here. It looks like there were some primates here, but 200,000 years ago, modern man appears as if from nowhere. Was either brought here. There are meat bodies in other parts of the galaxy, or created here. But an intelligent, disposable, biological doesn't work without a spiritual being in it. Otherwise, it's an animal. And that's the second part of the crime here is people have been stuffed into meat bodies and told to stay there because it suits someone else's purposes. So the Mayan calendar supposedly is ending December 21st, and it will recycle. It'll go around the galaxy again. The Georgian calendar and the Gregorian calendar were switched at some point. People were killed for not agreeing with that. The date has already passed a few months back, and nothing happened. So this is all hype, and earthquakes are actually down this year rather than up, which doesn't make much sense. If there's a planet coming in that's going to shake the place up. So don't worry, be happy, and enjoy Christmas. And ignore the crap and turn off your television because there are hypnotic instructions coming over the television, and that's why they call it programming. And the real terror of the Cold War for America was they knew the development of mind control weapons was occurring planet-wide, and they didn't want to have the Russians take over America, unknowns to the Americans, using mind control weapons. Well, the Russians had a thing called the woodpecker, which was microwaves coming out of Russia high up into the atmosphere, bouncing down into the middle of America. And they did that for years, and this thing just made a clicking sound like a woodpecker, and they could never figure out what are they doing. This doesn't do anything. This was in the microwave band that people can hear, and it's been stopped, so they can't check this, but it was probably propaganda on that communication line, and it went on for a long, long time. And that event is time coincident with the depression of North America, from kind of a joyous, fun place to the mechanical meat grinder it is now. No one seems to be having any fun. No one has any hope of anything better. The joy is gone out of life. Joy is gone out of family. And in addition to fluoride poisoning in the water, which is mind control, genetically modified, de-enriched foods, and chemtrails in the air with fibers and morgellons and aluminum. There's obviously a large-scale plot, and who could pay for such a thing? Would have to be at least one government, or several, or the banking cartels, top 300 families in the hands of psychopathic leadership. I saw a documentary about psychopaths, and I've never heard this before, but I would better find out if it's true. It said that psychopaths, they showed a whole bunch of government figures while they were talking about this, actually have part of their frontal lobes missing. Not in the sense of a hole, but it's not as thick as a non-psychopathic person. So it actually is brain damage or a birth defect or alternately alien DNA, a slightly different style of human who is less empathetic. And certain they are right. They are consummate liars, because lying doesn't matter. Survival is what matters. And although it is said that survival is the basic command of the game here, at what price? Do you jump in the water to save the little drowning girl and lose yourself in the current, or just watch her drown? This is a small example of the meeting point between two universes, the agreed upon physical universe and your universe, which may have a different kind of realities in it, which would be morals and ethics and ideals and concepts like that, which are just as real as the 3D objects that we lovingly caress. And I saw a documentary once on abortion in America, and very near the end they had the huge railway car-sized dumpsters full of aborted babies of all different sizes, and they'd been in there so long it had become a slurry of human flesh, and they were dumping it into a garbage dump. And the commentator said, how poor a nation are we really if we have to sacrifice our own children for that new car or that new home or a college education. So we may poo-poo the Chinese for killing their female children and the Indians for killing their female children because the males are valued. But it's going on in the West to the same degree. And for a less noble reason than third world countries where they are genuinely starving and hard-pressed, where we just can't be bothered to keep our legs closed or use birth control or do without that secretarial degree so you can get a better job. This is also some of the crap that will have to be re-examined. There's nothing people hate more than the truth. But the truth will set you free, and with more experience as a race we have as an addendum, but first it will piss you off. So ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Do something. I'm looking into some electronic devices, and the history of electricity is about 7 people on this planet, and they're all about a lifetime apart, where someone made a statement, was told he was crazy, and then the next lifetime someone says, maybe he wasn't, let's take a look at that, and he goes, wow, it actually does work. Then his work is taken up another 70 years later by someone else, saying, well, if that works, maybe we could build a machine. And now everything's electrical. The same thing is happening with spirituality, ethics, morals, and consciousness, and we have a chain of people like the Buddha and Lao Tzu, Confucius, Jesus, assorted saints who were burned alive, and now the exopolitics, whistleblowers, Baba Ramdas, Yogananda, Madame Blavatsky. It's funny how everybody who's into spirituality turns out to be a drug-taking pervert. That's statistically impossible. But they have to be debunked lest you look at their works. So sleep not and watch, as Jesus says. Here's a small example of this. Scientists, physicists have begun to notice that processes change when they're observed. The apprehension by the process by a human being actually changes the process. They want to know about that. In the investigation of purely physical processes, we generally employ concepts of so abstract a character that as a rule we think only cursorily and not at all of the sensations that lie at their base. The foundation of all purely physical operations is based upon an almost unending series of sensations, particularly if we take into consideration the adjustment of the apparatus which must precede the actual experiment. Now, it can easily happen to the physicist who does not study psychology of his operations that he does not see the trees for the wood, that he overlooks the sensory element at the foundation of his work. Psychological analysis has taught us that this is not surprising, since the physicist is always operating with sensations. Physicists do not consider it necessary to know psychology and to deal with it in their conclusions. But when they are more or less acquainted with psychology, with that part of it which treats of the forms of receptivity and take it into consideration, then they hold the most fantastic duality of opinion, as in the case of the man of orthodox belief who tries to reconcile the dogmas of faith with the arguments of reason, and who is obliged to believe simultaneously in the creation of the world in 7 days, 7,000 years ago, and in geological periods hundreds of thousands of years long, and in the evolutionary theory. He is thus forced to resort to sophisms and demonstrate that by 7 days is meant 7 periods. But why 7 exactly, he is unable to explain. For physicists, the role of the creation of the world is played by the atomic theory and the ether with its wave-like vibrations, and further by electrons and the energetic or electromagnetic theory of the world. Or sometimes it is even worse, where the physicist in the depths of his soul feels the falsity of all old and new scientific theories, but fears to hang in the air, as it were, to take refuge in mere negation. He has no system in place of that whose falsity he already feels. He is afraid to make a plunge into mere emptiness, lacking sufficient courage to declare that he believes in nothing at all. He accoutres himself in all contradictory theories as in an official uniform, only because with this uniform are bound up certain rights and privileges, outer as well as inner, consisting of a certain confidence in himself and his surroundings, to forego which he has no strength and determinism. The unbelieving positivist. This is the tragic figure of our times, analogous to the atheist or unbelieving priest of the times of Voltaire. Out of this abhorrence of a vacuum come all dualistic theories which recognize spirit and matter existing simultaneously and independently of one another. In general, to a disinterested observer, the state of our contemporary science should be of great psychological interest. In all branches of scientific knowledge, we are absorbing an enormous number of facts destructive of the harmony of existing systems, and these systems can maintain themselves only by reason of the heroic attempts of scientific men who are trying to close their eyes to a long series of new facts, which threatens to submerge everything in an irresistible stream. In reality, we were to collect these system-destroying facts. They would be so numerous in every department of knowledge as to exceed those upon which the existing systems are founded. The systemization of that which we do not know may yield us more for the true understanding of the world and the self than systemization of that which, in the opinion of exact science, we do know. Well, that's from a book about understanding the fourth dimension, and it's able to explain it by page 35. You already know how it works. Beings in this quadrant of the galaxy are in very bad shape and believe they need a meat body to work with, and This is not true. A much more ideal state is to be outside of the meat body, controlling it like a puppet, and one gains quite a bit in understanding and perceptions. And there's nothing wrong with running a meat body as long as you know you're doing that. But if you think you are it, this is not the best operating procedure. One got here because one wanted to play a game, and several trillion years later winds up here. Running a meat body. It is possible to learn how to get out of your meat body, and it's a better game. Here, the meat body game is can be a fun game. It's supposed to be a fun game with your wife and your kids and your strivings, and then you meet again and do it again until everyone's happy with the game. But that's not what we're allowed to have now, and I'm talking about getting us back to where the game is fun again. Now, instead of doting on the nightly news or the latest terror video from I Want to Scare the Shit Out of You.com, I recommend that you go to Stuart Swerdlow and view his video Hyper Text 101, and you can learn some geometrical concepts that you can use to protect yourself from energetic attacks. And go to Anelia Ben's website and look at her Ascension 101. She has some free little videos there, especially the one on how to have money or clearing the energy in a room. These are things you could be doing rather than watching I Want to Scare the Shit Out of You.com Part 2. Okay? So, looking towards a sincere Christ Mass season where we celebrate Egyptian and Hermetic astrotheology in the name of Jesus Christ of the Holy Roman Catholic Church.